Welcome back to the agenda. Now, former PRASA acting CEO Collins Letsoalo has rejected, in fact, he's not rejected, he's accepted the Sunday Times apology, but he wants more. The newspaper retracted a story it ran in June claiming that a special Auditor-General report had instructed Letsoalo to pay back money earned after allegedly hiking his salary by 350%. Now, Letsoalo was removed from his position by the board following those allegations. For more on the story, the former acting CEO of PRASA, Mr. Collins Letsoalo, joins us this morning. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Letsoalo. I think let's talk about, you've accepted the Sunday Times apology, is that correct?
Yes.
But you want more. Talk to us a bit about that.
Well, at the time I had said to them that there's no truth to this. Sunday Times went printed this article. It was a front page. It was around February last year.
I recall.
And then I was then appointed again to the PRASA board as a non-executive. That was after the High Court had found that I'm entitled to the money after they had lied. And that there's a perpetuation of a myth which was both unjust and unfair to me. I then received this call from a guy called Keifas Khosana, who is the Sunday Times journalist. I told him about this. I gave him all the information, including the High Court decision and the Public Service Commission clearance. He proceeded to print that without confirming. Now, he used a forged AG report to be able to do that. So you can see that it's a concerted effort. It happened last year. They never apologized last year. It happened this year again. They perpetuated the very same myth the judge said they must not. So media can't go around doing that. As I said, I don't think the Sunday Times is to blame. It's their journalist that has done that. So I'm going for them after this journalist because they hired him, plus also after this journalist in his personal capacity. I want Popo Molefe to come. He must actually come and tell people. He came to this studio, told people that I also stole money, so I'm going for him as well.
We're talking about a forged Auditor-General report. Do you believe that there were certain individuals who were behind the forging of that document and giving it to the Sunday Times to run that particular article for particular purposes in order perhaps to tarnish your image?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the press ombudsman has asked this journalist to bring this document. He has never brought the document. He refused to cooperate with the press ombudsman. The AG has written there that this is a forged document that purports come from our office. The DA has also called me a thief. It's also interesting that the DA does forge AG reports because they've done it with the former mayor of Cape Town. So it looks like it's a thing where Chapter 9 institutions reports can be forged for people to actually malign people. So I'm not going to accept that an apology just to write and say we are sorry is enough.
Collins, you also did say that there seems to have been certain individuals. You say that, in fact, it was you who had uncovered corruption at PRASA. And on road shows, according to the reports that I have seen, you said you uncovered reports, beg your pardon, you uncovered corruption going far down as the tea lady at PRASA. Is that what you said?
No.
I
said I have uncovered corruption. In the main, that includes a lot of executives that were there. Who? But equally...
Collins, I'm going to ask you. I know that you have not spoken out about this, right?
Yeah.
And I think you are saying that you were grieved by what has taken place.
Of course.
You were fired because of what had taken place. Yeah. We'll get to, I guess, you know, the impact of the decisions that were taken following that report by the Sunday Times. But you also, in the midst of that, are claiming that this part of this corruption involved executives.
Yes.
Tell us who.
Well,
take us into your confidence, Collins. Tell us who are these, approximately how many of these executives did you believe, or do you believe were involved in corruption at PRASA? And give us names.
Well, I can give you a name of someone that was called, last year he was celebrated by the media because the view was that he came with this thing, he stopped me from paying myself and all that. That's Begani Kumar. There's a guy there that was the acting group executive responsible for HR. That man has done things. He was working at the subsidiary called Autopex. There he is the one that paid himself monies. And when he was being charged, he was hidden. He then ran to head office where he was protected. At head office, he decided to buy T-shirts from his own sister without even following processes.
Begani Khumalo is one of the people that you mentioned. Who
Yes.
else? And was he being shielded by particular executives and members of the board? Tell us.
Members of the board.
Who?
The chairperson of the board protected him. The chairperson of the HR committee also protected him. So there's a lot of people that were hiding behind the thing. So there was a lot of things that I was investigating against this man, including charges of sexual harassment that had come to my attention. So I'm saying the media must do, if either investigative journalists, they must go and search and they'll find out there's true. I've got all that evidence.
So are you saying that they were behind this forged Auditor-General's report, which you are saying you have not even seen, right?
I'm saying they stand to benefit from that. I'm not saying it's them because I don't know whether it's only the journalists from Sunday Times that can tell him, whether it's him or his sources. But when the Sunday Times responded to the press ombudsman, they said they got the report from someone who is a knowledgeable source and quite reliable source. But he gave them a report that is forged. And they have not even opened the case against the police. Against
At
him
the time,
and
you had asked the Sunday Times when they had informed you that they were writing the story about this. You had obviously asked the Sunday Times or the journalist for a copy of what they're using to base their story on.
I told them there's no such a thing. Because if you think about when you get the AG before they issue out any report, they would make what we call audit queries. Those audit queries will go to responsible people. People will give them evidence, either in support or they would accept that the wrong was done. And a high court ruling would have been enough to dispel that thing. So the AG would never have printed such a report. So I told them there's no such a report. I actually said to the man, there's no such a report. He said, well, I see this. I say, well, here is the quote. I quoted for him from the judgment, and I showed it to him and I sent it to him. I said there couldn't have been anything like that. If you don't believe me, ask the AG. What did the Sunday Times do? Go ahead, print out this thing without asking the AG. And when the ombudsman asked them why you are not doing that, they never came forth. In fact, the ombudsman says they failed to cooperate with his office. So we are none the wiser about who the author of this report is. But it looks like it's a concerted effort where people will take Chapter 9 institution reports and use it to malign other people and come back and say, I'm sorry. Yes, well, they are sorry, but that's not enough.
That's not enough. How much are you demanding from the Sunday Times? Tell us.
Well, my lawyers are working on that. It's not only that.
Plus, minus how much? Tell us.
I'm not sure. I don't want to.
Are we running into millions?
Of course, we're running
Couple of
into
millions? 2, 3, 4, 5 million?
Maybe 20 million.
20 million.
Probably.
20 million is what you're demanding from the Sunday Times, not just an apology. That's
not
breaking
Sunday
news.
Times. PRASA,
yes.
Sunday Times, Popo Molefe, Begani Khumalo, and all the other people that are associated with that. So my lawyers are actually working on the papers and the evidence that we have.
So 20 million is what you are demanding. Yes. I want to talk, I picked up slightly. Fortunately, you were able to mention, you're saying that Begani Khumalo had been part of the individuals who you believe were out to tarnish your image. You also brought up the issue of Popo Molefe as well.
Yes.
Who were amongst the other individuals who you believe you felt were uncomfortable with what you say is the uncovering of corruption within PRASA? Who else felt uncomfortable by that when you raised this issue?
It became bigger. It started being Begani Khumalo of this world, became a few executives. Then what I did, I then said to each and every one of these employees at PRASA, 17,000 of them, tell me who of your relatives is doing business with PRASA. Some in my office, the wife was doing business with PRASA. Then I realized later on that I also said, tell me who are relatives that you have that are employed around in PRASA. You had one is to about 13, where wives sons, everyone was working there. How possible is that? So there were issues of nepotism that were there. Yeah. There were buses that were shifted from jobs for Pearl scheme, buses that came from the Eastern Cape carrying people to be employed at PRASA. It's there, it's documented. So I'm saying it's a lot of other people that are involved, so it can't be a single person, which is why when this thing happened, people stopped talking. They never said, well, that's not true that this man paid himself, because it benefited them.
Have you raised some of course, what you're alleging here to us, the likes of Begani Khumalo as well as Popo Molefe? Have you raised some of these concerns pertaining to what you believe was a concerted effort to tarnish your image, perhaps with the relevant, you plan to take further action against some of these individuals that you already have not taken?
No, I remember when that happened, I also wrote to the minister, I explained. Yes. It was my representation. Funny enough, I'm the only one that did it under oath, because I knew that there was nothing. Yeah. And then I opened a case of perjury against Popo Molefe. He went to the High Court and he said he never knew anything about this payment. And I adduced evidence. The case number is 341/4/2017 in Brooklyn. They are sitting on it. They are shunting it around. It went to province. I've got a guy called Warrant Officer Mota that was responsible for it as an investigative officer. He has done nothing. The evidence is there. And as I live here, I'm going to open a case of fraud of this forged investigation report at Brooklyn Police Station against this Sunday Times journalist and his sources.
So as you leave here, you're going to the Brooklyn police station, yes, to open up a case of fraud against the journalist, as well as
yes,
the Sunday Times.
At a criminal level. And civilly, I'll still pursue my issue of my damages.
Mr. Collins Letsoalo, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure having you here on SABC News. The former acting CEO at PRASA, Collins Letsoalo, telling us here on SABC News that as he leaves this interview, he is going to open up a case of fraud against the Sunday Times journalist who wrote that article that subsequently led to his firing from PRASA, and also saying that there are quite a number of individuals within that particular organization that were out to tarnish his image because of what he says was a corruption that he had uncovered at PRASA. But we'll take a short break here on the agenda. More news when we get back.